is it my imagination or is it a sign? This is probably the number one question I get asked on a regular basis. We all want to connect with our loved ones so badly, and sometimes we think everything is a sign, or we want it to be a sign. It may be a sign, and we just may not be sure. Other times we think we're making it up, and that is can be a tricky distinguishing factor. Am I imagining it, or is it a sign? And so that's why I chose this topic to speak about. And what I have found over the years is the difference is with our imagination, it's actually a thought process. And when we're using our imagination, it's usually a visual involved, but you have to think through the steps. It's your mind is working, you're taking it a step further at a time. Usually the question is, I'm going to use a fun question. If I won the lottery, what would I do with it? And in that process, you're thinking about individuals, you're thinking about places, how would you donate that money? What would you do with it? So that's the idea with imagination. You also may realize in majority of cases with imagination, you don't have an actual smell. It's your smell is a little bit dulled. Your feeling, which is also known as clairsentience, may be a little bit dulled. The sounds are a little bit dulled, all because we are making that process happen with our imagination. So to solidify my point, I would like to take you guys through a short exercise so you can feel the difference. So right now, I would like you to first bring to mind your dining room. Don't care if you don't use it hardly ever. Some people just sit in a eating area or your living room, but just bring to mind right now your dining room. And bring in as many pictures of that dining room that you can. What is on the wall? What color are the walls? How many chairs do you have? Is there anything on the table? How would you set that if you're going to set it for a holiday or a get-together? So let's just look around that dining room through your mind right now and just, bring as much detail and information as you can regarding your dining room. And I'm going to give you, some quiet time here for just about a minute to let you do that. I bet some of you were able to bring to mind great detail all the way down to a little scratch on the table that others may not notice. I bet some of you were really working hard to think through, what is on the wall in there, or what else is in there that I'm not thinking about. And if you take just a moment and you realize how much you had to think through that dining room, you can see that at times that process, you'll get immediate information. Like, there's a table, 6 chairs. And when you go further in detail, it takes a little bit longer because you're kind of walking through. Okay. So now for the exciting part, signs. And signs come into us in many different ways. And there's a lot of things that I'd like to, you'll notice I take very little time on imagination and more on signs. And there's a reason behind that, because it's the most fun and it's what we all want to know, really. So signs from our loved ones come in many different ways. And there's some specific ways to really think about it. So, we all communicate differently. And we also hear a lot from books, TV, media, a lot of things about signs. And I would like to talk about not only different styles of communication, but the grandiose level of signs. It can be from really tiny to really big. So your loved ones want to communicate with you as much as you want to communicate with them. And we're never bothering them by speaking too much. If we do, they'll just leave. I'm just kidding. So we're not really, we're not bothering them, because remember, they love us, right? And you know, you may have a very visual mind. So if you're one of those people just now in that exercise that got a great deal of detail, then your clairvoyance is going to be very strong. If you're an individual that had to work really, really hard at going through that dining room and really thinking about a memory, or, you know, you had to work really hard, then your clairvoyance may not be as strong, but your other senses will be strong. You know, you may be very verbal within the mind. You may feel other people's emotions or energy of places better. So, you know, first off, we have all different types of ways of receiving information, and our loved ones on the other side will use those avenues. But here's the trick of that. If you have a loved one on the other side who's actually very analytical, not very creative, you know, maybe an engineering type of mind, and you are the opposite, you're very creative, you know, have an active imagination, you can visualize things, your loved one may give you a sign in the way that comes through hearing or feeling, or just, you know, a sound that comes from an electronic device, a note, you know, like a piece of paper, a quarter, a dime, you know, things like that, very tangible. Whereas you may wondering, why am I not dreaming about them? Why am I not, you know, seeing them in my mind's eye, things like that. And it's, so you have to keep in mind that when they communicate with you, they're going to communicate with you in the same way they communicated while they were here. When we get a sign, it comes through very quick. It just drops in. And I often find the best way for our loved ones to get our attention is when we're doing something mundane or unexpected. So, you know, mundane could be honestly your everyday commute. You know, if you do the same drive every day, or you do the same path of driving regularly, sometimes I bet you've gotten to, you don't even know how you got to your destination. It's almost like you're on automatic pilot. In that space, you may receive messages from your loved ones. It's just a thought, or you think of them, or you might hear a little laugh or a phrase. You know, I can't tell you how many times they come through in a session and they talk about sitting in the car and conversing. They do it all the time, and that's because it's an ideal space for, we almost get, you know, just a hint of a meditative space, even though we're actively doing something. So, I mean, I feel like the brain is amazing just on that fact alone. You could be cleaning house, you know, you could be cooking dinner. If you have a loved one on the other side who is an excellent cook and you're cooking dinner, you may just feel like all of a sudden they said more pepper, you know, or do this, you know, that would be them there with you. And in that moment, you might think to myself, you know, oh, I just made that up. But it comes so fast and you're not really thinking it. Sometimes we feel them, you know, you have that experience when you're in the house alone and you just feel like somebody else is there. If you have pets, they may be kind of looking around a little bit, or raise their head from their nap and put their head back down. You know, that kind of feeling, I would say to you, just take a moment and say, is someone here? And usually you'll have a yes or no very quickly. You know, it's just an instant. And if it's a yes, and in most cases like this, it will be a yes, quickly ask, who's here? And whoever's face or name or feeling pops up to you, that's who it is, and say thank you. Thank you for the visit. So that's how the feeling kind of takes hold. You know, in the car, you might feel like you're having a conversation. Many of us do, but it's from the other side, it's going to just be little drop-ins in the mind. You know, that's how it comes in. It may sound like your voice, but be their words, their phrases. A fun game to play to connect with the other side is putting your music player on, putting a playlist on, or just all of your music library, whether it be on the radio or your phone, or, you know, I don't know if anybody has iPods anymore, but put that on and ask your loved ones to pick a song. They will communicate through a song. It's a great way to play with them, so that it can come in that way. You can also find coins. That happens to so many people. I found 2 coins myself Friday when I was in Fort Myers. So it was really extra special because it was in such a way that it was a sign. There was just no way to have a quarter show up on the dresser, and I didn't have any change with me, and a quarter show up in the suitcase. So, a lot of times we find coins. I had somebody come through the other day from the other side and told their mother that their mother got a piece of mail, one and only, from them. And it was in the form of junk mail, but it had obviously the person's name on it. And the mom was shocked, but because she had never gotten mail from her son before. So, that was just a sign, and she needed to pick me up at that time. We talk about birds, a lot of times there's cardinals, but there can be other birds. Just in a reading today, another mother who had lost another son, he kept saying, a bluebird, I'm showing a bluebird, because he didn't believe in cliches, this young man. So he sent her a bluebird. And she looked at me stunned, because she said the type of bluebird she saw, she's never seen outside of her home country before. So it's not native to Georgia. So that's a big sign, not expected. It catches you off guard, it just kind of stands out. That makes you go, how did that happen? That kind of way. Let's talk about some of the bigger signs. Now, these are signs that might make your heart race or stop for a moment, and yet they can be so powerful. So some of the bigger signs, you actually may feel like a hug from the other side, or you may feel like you've just stepped through an individual that was so close to you. The essence of them, it's so present, it's so strong, and yet it might make your heart race and bring sadness all at the same time, because it's overwhelming. A loved one on the other side may go so far as to turn your TV on and off. That it takes a lot to do that. I know they use electronics a lot, but if the electronics are already on, it's a little bit easier to manipulate versus turning something on or off. You may be out and you may see someone that looks exactly like someone from the other side, and you look again and it doesn't look anything like them. That's an overlay. That's them showing you them in a way that you would remember them. And it's fleeting and it's brief and it's still a gift. So they may do that. You may be thinking through ideas and thoughts and go to write something or type something, and all of a sudden it changes. That could be them writing to you. So extraordinary things happen. It's really amazing what they will do to get through to us. And it's just to show that they're still with us. You may hear your name being called out loud. People have experienced the brushing on their cheek right before they go to sleep as a kiss from the other side. And then we have the stories of, I don't know how someone was saved in an accident, and yet people saw someone there. And I'm not referring to angels here. I'm specifically talking about your loved ones, where they saw someone and the person just walked away. So it can be extraordinary. So when we think of signs, a billboard may change. Recently, a woman's son, she saw his name on the side of a truck, and she went to look up the business, and there was no truck with that business name. It was just a plain white truck, and she saw his name. So that's a pretty huge sign. So as you see, they come in a range. And do I think any sign is more important or significant? No, I don't. I think each and every single sign is a gift. Sometimes it might be a dream, visit dreams. Aren't those lovely? So when we think of these signs, I really would like you to appreciate when they come, say thank you, because we forget that a lot. We get the signs and We forget to say thank you. We'll say, can you give me a sign? And then they give you a sign. And then you say, oh, I got that, but that was really cool, but I'm not sure. So can you give me another sign? And then then you say, oh my gosh, I can't believe that, but I'm still not sure. So can you give me another sign? Well, let's take into account how many things you're doing. So ask for the sign, say thank you, and then when you get another sign, say, oh my gosh, thank you. If you feel them there, say, I love that you're visiting. You know, is there anything you would like to share? So it can be in any of those kinds of ways. So do you understand what I'm saying? All right, we have a question. This is a great question from Tammy. The question is, can spirits physically move things? Oh, yes. Yes, they can. And I think we have a lot of jokers on the other side. In particular, I find people with a sense of humor will do this. But just today, I had a young man say to his mother that he moved the mail. There was a bill that was buried, and he told her that her house wasn't, through me, that her house hasn't been as clean as when he was here. And you know, she's going through grief, so she's overwhelmed, and the mail piled up. And he took one bill and he put it on top. And the reason he put it on top was to assist her to not let that bill get unpaid. I had one person on the other side over the weekend say he didn't like this one photo that they had out, so he kept turning the frame around, and they burst out laughing because they kept wondering who's moving the picture frame. They will move keys around. So yes, they can absolutely physically move things. But in my experience, when they move things, it won't be like, you know, how you saw in Poltergeist, the chairs up on the table to scare you, things like that. So yes, they can move things. Mary, I had one amazing visit dream. Is there a way to initiate more visits? Mary, that's an excellent question. I often feel that so there's many factors involved in a visit dream. First off, it has to be the phase of sleep. So, you know, you have to be in the ideal state where they can get into, and this goes for all of us. If we're not a good sleeper and we're in and out, it may be hard enough for being in that state long enough for them to get through. If we take medicines to help us sleep, you know, or there are certain medications that make us really sedated, including cough medicines that knock you out, it can be hard for them to get through that. It also could be that they're giving you other signs, and it could be a challenge for them maybe to get through in a visit dream. I'm with you, Mary. I love a visit dream. I've only had a few myself ever, and it's extraordinary. So it is an extra special connection. The only thing I can say to you is keep asking for them to come through in that state again. If you can't make that happen, because it is tricky, you know, we can't force them what to do. Guided meditations are a brilliant way to, over time, if you do the same guided meditation over and over again, it's a brilliant way to start to set yourself up to meet your loved ones in a meditative state. You invite them to the meditation before you do it. So that will be another way for you to initiate a visit. Okay, so I hope that answered that question for you. Okay, so we have Yolanda. Why when I ask them to come visit, they don't, but come maybe months later? Brilliant question, Yolanda. You remember, they're doing things on the other side, just like we're doing things here. And you may find they come days later, months later, and if it's not an urgent situation, they may continue doing what they're doing. It doesn't mean that they're not hearing you, but you know, they can be doing so many things on the other side. They could be learning, they could be, you know, getting some answers to questions. They could be getting help themselves. They could be helping others. And so we may ask them for a visit, and then all of a sudden, poof, out of nowhere, they come after we wanted them there. However, if it's an emergent situation, they may just show up even in that time. So I would say that you ask them to visit, you may not feel them there. It doesn't always mean that they're not there. It might also be a little more subtle than what you're used to experiencing. So if you say, you know, I really want to visit with you, and they don't come, give it a few days, and they don't come, then you can say, can you please at least just give me one sign so I know you're okay, or just one connection, just one little thing. that will usually happen. Okay, beautiful question. Okay, so I have a question from Jennifer. I have been receiving several numerical signs and I don't know from who or why. So numbers, Jennifer, can be from guides and they can be from your loved ones. Usually if you see a series of regular digits, 1111, 333, 444, 222, repeating digits like that, in general, I would say they're either from your guides. Some people refer to them as angels. And all of those numbers can easily be looked up. So just look at what you were thinking about at that time and then look up the number. Now, if you get a series of odd numbers on your phone, you see it in different places, and it's, you know, a strange set of digits, that it would be a time to say, who's sending me these numbers? Sometimes it could be their birth date or, you know, date of passing. It could be a significant date between the two of you. So there's many reasons those numbers would come through. You can also ask, if you're seeing the same set of numbers, are you trying to help me answer a question I've had? Because sometimes numbers is a good way for them to get through as well. So you'll find that there's a lot of angel numbers listed, but you know, I find the repetitive numbers, like I said, the 222s and so are from guides, and the odd numbers or unusual set of numbers are from your loved ones. So I hope that helps answer your question for you. Okay. Here is a question from Kathleen. When you were developing, was there a meditation image that worked for you? I've listened to meditations on meeting your guides. Imagine you're on a walk and then someone joins you, or meditations on light pouring into you, or Suzanne Gieseman's meditations on clearing your chakras, etc. But was there a particular image that you found worked? Well, Kathleen, it sounds like by what you're writing here that those kind of guided meditations didn't really work for you. So if I could be a little bit wrong, but what I pick up around you is actually sitting quietly would work better for you, having a stable place versus trying to visualize a walk, if you will. So you can create a space. You can create a comfortable living space. You can create like a bench in a park. This is just visual, you know, and somebody joins you there. Or you can envision as though you're walking outside of your own home, and beyond that is a path. And at the end of that path is a nice open area. And prior to doing any of these meditations, I would say invite your loved ones. Say, I'm going to a meditative state and I would love it if you would join me there. I have my own meditation that I've done, but I did find that the bench in a park has worked really, really well for me. And let's not hold on pulling them. Let's invite them, because that is key. Remember, they are people and they don't necessarily want to be bossed around either. So when we invite them, it allows for a little more freedom of any one of them to join, including our pets. They can come in through too sometimes. So I hope that answers your question for you. Okay, Yolanda. Hello, my dear. Yolanda was at a funeral and the person beside her was cold and kept saying she was feeling cold air and had chills. It was 90 degrees at the time. Was that a sign from him coming through to me? We were extremely close and she was his coworker. It can be, Yolanda. Sometimes you can feel cold to the bone, or you can get really hot. I do find usually from our loved ones, it can make you really, really cold. Neither changing your temperature cold or warm doesn't make it a better person or not good person. It's just a shift in temperature, and you will feel cold to the bone. So absolutely. And I will share very briefly a personal experience I had. After my grandmother passed, I found a penny on the floor, and when I went to pick it up, I felt like I stepped right through her, and it was a cool, but I knew it was her. And it just gave me chills all over. So yes. And Jennifer said, I heard a woman whisper my name in the middle of the night and it woke me up. It kind of scared me. Later in the morning, I realized it was October 15th, the day my grandmother passed in 2010. Was it her? I would have no doubt, Jennifer, because, you know, on a subconscious level, you're going to know that it was your grandmother's birthday on that day. And so you would already be kind of thinking about her. So in a way, you're inviting them in, not necessarily thinking about it, but also they may just call your name and it wakes you up. And, you know, usually it's in the mid-morning, somewhere between 2 and 3 a.m. or 2:30, 3:30 a.m. that you will get that. And again, that is this area of the circadian rhythm where we are in the sleep state that we meet them well. So those connections can be very strong. So, yeah, it's around 4 a.m. Okay. So, yep, I would have no doubt if you thought it was your grandmother, if it felt like her, absolutely go with that. Okay, Janelle, do you think we get more signs on their death anniversary? Oh, Janelle, this is a great question. A lot of people like to book appointments on anniversaries and birthdays. And I have found that actually a lot of times something happens and those sessions end up being moved for whatever reason. So no, I don't necessarily think we get more signs on their death anniversary. Keep in mind that time on the other side is very different than time here. And they're living, you know, they're not focused on their passing, but we are. We remember, you know, their days, their passings, but they don't necessarily, they're thinking about living. They're thinking about your daily life. They're watching what's going on. So no, I don't think we necessarily get more signs. That being said, if we're really in a tough place on that day, we may feel like we're getting more signs because they're supporting us more on that day. So that's how I would answer that, but it's a great question. Okay, Angela. When falling asleep, I've experienced sustained intense electrical charge through my whole body. I often see images when this happens. Is this an attempt at contact from someone? Yes, it can be. Now, I would say to you, you have some control over this because this kind of experience is going to be a little bit out of boundaries for your direct loved ones. So to me, this sounds like you're actually being, you know, connected by some other spirits because your loved ones wouldn't give you that kind of feel. So it's like you're getting a surge of energy. So what I would say to you in that sense is be very clear. You know, this is my space. I'm getting ready to sleep. I only welcome my loved ones. Others may leave. And I want to be clear, when I talk about other people on the other side, I'm not talking about negative or bad spirits, okay? Majority of us are not going to run into situations like that. So we're not opening up to things that are scary or things like that. But if you have a natural tendency to connect to not only your loved ones, but other people's loved ones, they will know that. And so you may not even know that you have that ability, but it can be a supercharge. So I would just say to you, I don't welcome that, and I only really wish to connect with my loved ones, and that will give you a sense of control, okay? And be better comfortable when you're going to sleep as well. Okay. Judy, I have been seeing images through the corner of my eye. To me, it seems like a male, perhaps someone who lived in the home before. Are they trying to send me a message? So Judy, if I can just jump in actually here quickly, psychically, because the very first thing that comes up for me around this is actually a guide and not tied to the house. So are they trying to give you a message? Well, our guides are often with us, and my sense about you, I'm not going to go into specific detail here, but my sense about you is you're actually in a heavy decision-making process, and I see you trying to decide between two things. And so when you're seeing somebody so strongly out of the corner of your eye like that, you know, guides are trying to get your attention. So I would say to you in this decision process, ask questions about one topic, see what you get, and then ask questions about the other topic. And when I say see what you get, it's, do I feel a strong weight behind it? Do I feel like a yes? Do I feel like a no? So that is how I would handle that. I hope that makes sense to you. I hope I answered your question, Judy, but I don't think it's tied to the home. I think it's a guide trying to get your attention. I see one here from Jennifer. I'm due on Thanksgiving with my first child. Yay for Jennifer. Congratulations. I want my guides and loved ones from beyond to be there for support to help me through labor. Should I meditate on this besides asking out loud? So when we speak to our guides or loved ones, we actually don't need to speak out loud. You can just talk in your mind. I will tell you, Jennifer, my experience, no one is alone at the time of giving birth, and no one is alone at the time of passing. You can have guides and loved ones on the other side there for that process. You'll find a lot of family members are very excited, not only on the mother's side, but the father's side. And so, you know, that kind of excitement draws them there too. You know, it's easy for me to say, take a deep breath and be through that process. But I will just say to you, you know, it looks good, and congratulations. I'm very excited for you. What a Thanksgiving gift that is, isn't it? Do we have the same guides throughout our lives and now? And how are they chosen for us? I'm sorry, I misread that. So we have at least one guide that I like to refer to as our life guide. Some people call that your angel or master guide. Our life guide has been with us prior to birth and throughout our entire life, and be with us until we transition out. So how are they chosen for us? Well, guides have lived before, and they are here to help within their realm. So, you know, and they'll be paired up with people in a way that makes sense. So for example, the way you communicate is the way a guide will communicate with you. You know, you'll be able to establish that communication. How they're chosen for us can be very complex, but you're always going to have one. Can they change throughout our lifetime or more added? Yes, some can come and go. Some may not be there, but that life guide will always be there. So without going into a whole long discussion on life guides, I hope that answered that question just a little bit for you. All right. Beth, is your guide usually someone you knew? How can you find out? Well, that's a great question, Beth. I will say in the majority of cases, you know, I've done over 5,000 readings at this point, and I can probably only count on my two hands here how many times a guide was actually our loved one. And the loved one will tell us that in a reading. Majority of guides are not someone that we knew, but you can get to know them and you can get to know about them. And that can be done through meditation, or just you develop a relationship with your guide through talking back and forth with them. But yeah, not in general our loved one. And the reasoning is guides are a little more objective than our loved ones are. Truth of the matter. So that's why it is that way. All right. Mary, why do I recommend we wait at least 6 months for another reading? Beautiful question. The reason is life has to play out. And whether it's a medium reading or a psychic reading, a lot of information in general comes through in a reading. And so we need to let that time play out. Also, I would hate for somebody to book for a reading too soon, and your loved one says, I just spoke to you, so I'm really only here to say hello. And then that's the extent of the reading. You know, it can happen, trust me. So we let life play out, but you still get your signs, you still talk to them in between. But that is why. And same with psychic information. You know, a lot happens in a reading, and so we have to let life catch up to what was said in that reading. So that's why the wait. Okay, Carol. So when you feel or hear a message, how can you tell if it's from a loved one, a guide, etc.? Good question. So very first thing to ask yourself is, who am I hearing this from? And if you don't feel like you get an answer of a name or a picture of somebody you know, then you go, is this a loved one of mine or is this a guide? And that right there will start to give you the guide feeling or a loved one feeling. And then if it's the loved one feeling, you start to go through, you know, is it my mom? Is it my dad? Is it my spouse? Is it this? You'll land on somebody. If it's a guide, you'll say, oh my gosh, well, hello, how do I get to know you more? Boom, 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 and go down the same type of conversation. So, you know, you just have to trust the feeling and the response you get, which is a big deal. But, you know, that's how you do it. Okay. So we can take 2 more questions here. Judy, can you request a guide come to a reading? Do they do this? Absolutely, Judy, especially psychic. We don't need a medium reading for your guides to come through. And when working psychically, I rely on guides. I really love when your guides come to a reading and my guides are there. So because we get it in a rounded way and we get information outside of our own selves that we would get. So you can absolutely request them to come to a reading. For all of you interested in guides here, I would say to you, the way you start building up a relationship is you say, okay, look, and you can feel strange about it, and you do all of this in your mind, but you can say, I know I have a guide. I would love to get to know you more. What do I call you? Like, how do I know you're here? So you just start with a name. You know, what is your sign that I know you're around? They may give you a sign or a feeling, you know, and you get to know that feeling just the way you know how your loved ones feel or sound, or what their personality is like. It's the same kind of thing. You're just developing it with a guide. And the thing about guides is you want to build a relationship. So it's a relationship of respect and not irreverence, you know? So that's how I view it, and that's your way to do it. So I feel like we've answered a lot of questions tonight. I am so thrilled that so many of you joined us. I absolutely love talking to all of you, as you can see. These webinars are very exciting for me, and we look forward, if you have any topics that you would like to talk about or for us to address in the future, please do email them to amy@amyutsman.com. And we will try to make sure we give you the webinars that you feel like you want to gain some information out of. I have a list, but my list may not match yours. So I'm here for you guys. So thank you all so much. Hope it's nice and warm where you are. And if you're in the storm's path, you know, stay safe. And very, very happy Thanksgiving to all of you. And we'll see you guys in December. Take good care.